much lumped docks and sorrels together, and he especially liked the yellow dock as a liver tonic, or what they call a blood cleanser. He said all of them have a kind of cooling and drying quality, the sorrel being the most cold, and the bloodworts being most drying. And then he starts actually talking about burdock as well. I mean, as one of the docks, it's a very different plant, but all docks being boiled with meat make a good broth, essentially, and a good food. He really thought it would help strengthen the liver and build the blood. Procures good blood, is how he put it. Being wholesome as a pot herb as any that groweth in the garden. Yet such is the nicety of our times, forsooth, that women will not put it into the pot because it makes the pottage black. Pride and ignorance, a couple of monsters in creation, preferring nicety before health. That's why we still read um, Nicholas Culpeper. He was a real character. He was the one who translated all the medical texts, the pharmacy manuals and medical books, out of Latin and put them in English so the common person could treat themselves. And thanks for doing that. The apothecaries, the pharmacy guilds of their days, and the doctors um, first had to have him charged with crimes, then accused him of witchcraft, and eventually he found himself on the wrong side of the English Civil War and was shot and killed in battle. The sorrels, he liked the sorrels, of course, just as I do, because they're a little more lemony, and they quench the thirst. He said it was very good for stimulating appetites in essentially weak stomachs, and good for agues, which are fevers. And he also said it was good as what they used to call a blood cleanser or a tonic, just something kind of boosts the immune system, and for killing worms, interestingly. And he said it was also a cordial to the heart, meaning it made the heart calmer and more, comfortable. And this is also actually rather important. The sorrels do have sort of an astringent, or what he would call a drying and binding capacity. Makes them good for diarrhea, for one thing, but also excessive menstruation can be very useful. So, you can see these are really good to have on hand for both food and medicine. He goes on and on really about the sorrels. He used them to expel kidney stones and urinary gravel, good for jaundice, inward ulcers of the body and bowels, so stomach ulcers and such, and as a poultice made with vinegar for ulcerated sores, tetters, ringworms, etc. Good to help also as a poultice reduce swelling of the glands in the throat. Juice gargled in the mouth helps heal the sores therein. And he liked it for boils. He liked it for all kinds of stuff. And one of the very important aspects of the sorrels and docks that was especially important in times past is they have what's called an anti-scorbutic property. In other words, they contain vitamin C. And our ancestors suffered greatly from scurvy, whether they were on ships or they were in the Appalachian Mountains or New England in these cold climates in the wintertime, and they had no fresh food to eat. They were living entirely on stored food, smoked meats, potatoes, and such. And scurvy would give them, everything from skin sores to the teeth falling out to, you can die from scurvy. So anything that had what they call an anti-scorbutic property was very sought after, and the sorrels and docks fall into that category. So that's one that start look for it in the spring. You're going to start spotting your sorrels and docks everywhere once you get used to looking for them. You'll also spot some other really good edible weeds and such that are in my book on edible weeds and grasses that usually grow right along with them, like Japanese knotweed and such. And of course, the dandelions and everything to Jerusalem artichokes and all the good stuff. Really, I like wild foods to make up a good percentage of my diet. I think that's eating such things are one of the main reasons why my great grandparents all lived to be about 100 years old. Getting all these, the variety of natural foods out of our diet and relying more on processed foods and just a small variety of really meats and vegetables that you might find at a grocery store. I mean, we think there's a great abundance at the grocery store, but really it's a fraction of what our ancestors would have eaten 100 years ago. I mean, they ate just, I mean, I've got a cookbook from the 1940s, and it lists the apples one could expect to find at the grocery store at the time. I think there were 120 varieties that would have been common at a grocery store in 1940. Imagine that. And they tell you which ones to use for pies and which ones to use for apple butter and applesauce, which ones for eating out of hand, which ones are best baked. Now you go to the store and you've got 3 to 5 varieties of apples. Just in that one category, we're eating such far fewer variety. When you think of the greens that our grandparents ate, all the root vegetables. I mean, when was the last time you ate parsnips or rutabaga? That was common on the table up until the 1950s. And I mean, all the fish and game that were also part of our ancestors' diets, and all the heirloom heritage fowl and stuff they would be growing on their farms, and we just don't have it in the American diet anymore. What we have is a whole lot of processed food. Actually, wheat that is made in flour that we commonly eat now has 90% less nutrition than it did 100 years ago. They figured out how to pump it up, make it bigger, make it Roundup ready. It's, fertilizers make it larger, which basically just means it holds more water and has more fiber. But all that intense nutrition is gone. So, and now everybody, is gluten intolerant and has celiac disease. Hey, I wonder why that happened. But, and we've gone from just 100 years ago. I mean, 100 years ago, just say right before 1900, so 120 years ago, the average American only ate up to between 10 and 16 pounds of sugar a year, and that would be on the high end, really. But I mean, that's stretched out over an entire year, all the desserts and everything. And now the average American is eating between 160 and 300 pounds of sugar a year. So heart disease, diabetes, all that. We've really replaced all that natural food, whether it's wild or farm raised, with just, chips and snack cakes and, something you pop in the microwave, fast food, and we're paying the price for it. So, I mean, developing a taste for those wild foods is probably going to be very good for your health, as well as giving you access to all these medicinal herbs. And you don't have, in most cases, you won't have to do the work of planting these. They're out there. So we'll talk about this for a few days. And like I said, my book, Medicinal Weeds and Grasses, is already out. I hope to have a book out on foraging by January. So look for that one. And the Omnivore's Guide to Home Cooking actually includes what I would consider like the top dozen or 2 dozen wild edibles and how to cook them and how to enjoy them. If you're interested in that, I've also got lots of fish and game recipes in that one, plus everything you can grow in the garden. It's almost like a encyclopedia of real food, if you want to look at it that way, and instructions on from scratch cooking. So I hope you'll check those out if you haven't gotten a copy already. Everyone loves my cookbook. More people like to eat than they like to use medicinal herbs. So it's been a big hit. And I mean, the praise has been really. No, I've gotten just nothing but positive feedback on that so far. Thank God, knock on wood. Hopefully that'll keep up. It would make a wonderful gift for someone in your life or for yourself. So keep that in mind. Y'all, I will talk to you next week. And we'll continue on these medicinal weeds that are sort of optional to grow in the garden for the next couple of weeks. And I think you're really going to find a lot of this interesting. A lot of these, I mean, think about the millions of dollars people spend on chemicals to try to eradicate these plants when they could be enjoying them, and the hours of labor spent pulling weeds and hoeing and using those little drill twisty things. When you could be eating them and using them as medicine and enjoying them. In the book of Genesis, it says God looked at the creation, everything he made was good. So it's about, I think, high time we start remembering that and recognizing that. So anyway, y'all, have a great week. I'll talk to you next time. The information in this podcast is not intended to diagnose or treat any disease or condition. Nothing I say or write has been evaluated or approved by the FDA. I'm not a doctor. The U.S. government does not recognize the practice of herbal medicine, and there is no governing body regulating herbalists. Therefore, I'm really just a guy who studies herbs. I'm not offering any advice. I won't even claim that anything I write or say is accurate or true. I can tell you what herbs have been traditionally used for. I can tell you my own experience and if I believe an herb has helped me. I cannot nor would I tell you to do the same. If you use an herb anyone recommends, you are treating yourself. You take full responsibility for your health. Humans are individuals and no two are identical. What works for me may not work for you. You may have an allergy, a sensitivity, an underlying condition that no one else even shares and you don't even know about. Be careful with your health. By continuing to listen to my podcast or read my blog, you agree to be responsible for yourself, do your own research, make your own choices, and not to blame me for anything ever.